bother. Right, okay, Goff, any news for us this week? Other than Melvin
No,
Bragg, which we can't listen to his series every week, which
Oh,
but
wow.
he might
no,
take over. There you go.
no, we'll watch this space who's going to replace him. But yeah, other than that,
Now,
no,
if he's yeah, go on.
no news. No,
Okay, good. All right, fair enough. Thank you. If it's Bethany Hughes, we'll be definitely listening every week. Anne,
No, no, no news.
oh,
No
that's oh my
news.
God, that's good. That's good. Richard, anything from you?
No, nothing for me.
Oh,
Mm.
except all those emails and attachments.
Richard, you could play a character in Godfather 8. You know, Milano from Sicily. That'll suit you. Right. Right, Milano, Picasso. Right, talking about Picasso, I'm going to apologise because I've got a load of images on Heracleum, which I'm going to be using next week, which have come via wonderful Henry. So, Henry, anything you'd like to tell us?
No, that's fine. I won't be here next week, so I'll miss it.
Oh my God, because I might have to dash over to Cyprus in the next few weeks for
Oh,
a few
no.
days.
Oh, well,
Oh no, you're not.
watched
No,
it.
it's. I might be on the same plane as him.
Well, we
I
can
might
see
be
it
this.
when we're.
Are you going first class?
No, I go economy, of course.
You'll be at the back then.
Yeah, good. Well, that's good. That's good. So yeah, same place as you. Right. Okay, we're going to look at Trajan's column today. Not any news really, and
Oh,
but in the sense that I wanted to do the Trajan's column stuff justice. So last night, what I did, I picked up a load of little bits and pieces, and I gave context to Trajan's column, and then we looked at some wonderful carvings on Trajan's column. And I said to everybody last night that what we're going to do, we're going to let Trajan's column settle for a few weeks, and we're going to come back to it with some color slides of the uncolored images that we're going to look at this week. And I did intimate that, I think, last week in regards to Trajan's column material that came my way via the National Geographic. So let's put Trajan's column up. Then we can settle in for this tonight. Now, word of warning. Last night we started roughly before 7:10. And we were still doing Trajan's column approximately at 10:10.
I'll be in bed.
I won't.
wow.
I won't do that to you. I won't do that to you guys, right? So I will not do that to you guys. So you've got a shortened version tonight.
Mm.
Once I've actually found the thingamajig. I'm doing this. There it is, images. So we do actually have 100 images, right? So I'm probably sort of do a bit of a speed through them. So you've got all of these, you've got all of these. It hasn't finished yet. So now I did a lot more background research than I would usually do. And the reason why this is such an amazing topic. But like many things in archaeology, you find that around the corner there's something else. And then you realize that if you're doing this based on images on the internet, you're going to fall down straight away. Simply because when you type in Trajan's column, and that's what this is, half the time you're looking at Marcus Aurelius's column. And sometimes you're looking at Antoninus Pius's base of the column, and it says this is Trajan's column. So with those learned things, we're able to extrapolate some information that's valuable to us tonight. And on this, there are over 100 individual scenes on Trajan's column. Over 100 individual scenes with boats, with houses, with children, with soldiers, with Dacians, with Roman legionaries, with all sorts of things. Sacrificial bulls. And the detail with most of it is astounding. The figures on Trajan's column are all the same size. So in other words, the figures themselves are meant not to look small, but are meant to look the same throughout. Apparently, the figures towards the top slightly bigger than the ones below because it's about perspective and all those types of things. But one thing, I bought the book, which is the description of the Trajan's column, which was published in 1874 by John Hungerford, Poland, which has actually come from the United States. And it doesn't actually start talking about the individual sculptures that with the spiral band that run around the column until page 105. So you can really appreciate the fact that there's so much information about this that I could spend the next 6 months just talking about it, which I'm not going to do, because I'm sure at that point you'll be all Trajan columned out. But the intricate weave and the intricate work on this tells a story that doesn't come to us via historians. Because usually when we have the work of historians, and that is not Trajan's column, that is actually Marcus Aurelius's column. When you look at this, even Marcus Aurelius's column itself, as it spirals around, this is actually shorter by quite some meters than Trajan's column. However, this is a complete history. Many historians' books from antiquity do not survive in a complete sense. So you might get one page missing and you might go on to something else, but this is complete. Both of these stories are complete. We're back now to the likes of Trajan's column. Now, there are flaws with this structure. And the flaws with this structure, the statue on the top, and what is surrounding this wonderful obelisk, this carved menhir, which is a Welsh word for it, of history that was first laid down around the year 113, AD 113, and was completed at the death of Emperor Trajan himself in the year 117. Now, I've just realised that I've just realised I just made a minor mistake. It was completely completed at the time of the death of Emperor Trajan in 117, right? Whereas ashes were placed into the base of the monument, but the actual construction episode was between AD 107 and 113. Needed to correct that. So the monument took just over 6 years to create, but it wasn't just the monument. It was actually the precinct of buildings around it. Most of the buildings around it are Renaissance buildings, buildings from the 15 and 1600s. However, this structure itself speaks of volumes of an antiquarian world that is only left with us as a percentage of what once existed. You may look at Rome today and think, oh, look at all these Roman ruins, and then compare it with the Roman ruins back in Britain. Our Roman ruins back in Britain, you could probably say, are 0.5 of all the stone structures built in the Roman era. Oh, shit. I got a letter on. I was in full flow then. Sod it. Hang on a minute. Sorry, guys. I should have given somebody a doodah on this. Right, hang on. I was in complete full flow then. Right, okay, let's try and get back to it. Richard, I'll give you, if anyone else wants to join, just add them. I just got to get back to full flow. Right, okay, yes, let's just get back to it and share. Let's get back into the moment. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Don't lose it, don't lose it, don't lose it. Okay, so we're looking at this, and the point I was trying to make is that this structure itself is identified alongside the 5% of the ruins of the eternal city of Rome that still survive today, only 5% of the Roman buildings that once stood AD 400 still stand today. And you'd think, oh my God, there's loads of it, but it's only about 5%. Okay. So when you compare that with Britain, it's 0.5% of what the Romans built here. Now, some facts and figures with this. Trajan's column itself overlooked the Basilica Oppia. And this wonderful monument itself, the column itself is 97 foot high. And one thing that this column encapsulates is more than just the construction of the column itself and all the other buildings around it, which were constructed in the reign of Emperor Trajan himself. So it's amazing to think that 100,000 tons of stone were used for the precinct around Trajan's column alone. The actual weight of Trajan's column is estimated to be about 1,100 tons. And when you want to compare that to monuments around us in the British landscape, if you go to the likes of Avebury, what you would find is some of the stones at Avebury are 50 tons in weight. And you're thinking, oh my God, wow. But this is, oh wow, on another level. This is 1,100 tons, if not more. Now, the column length, 97 foot, that's the column length. The full length is 126 foot in length. And to get a more understanding of this, it's like comparing other monuments, like Marcus Aurelius's column, which is in front of us today. The other two columns that once existed are associated with the general stroke emperor Phocas in the AD 600s. That's one column. And there was another column constructed in the reign of Antonius Pius. There may have been other columns like this dotted around Rome and other parts of the empire, which have since become lost under the tide of progress and a tide of change that occurred after this great Roman world. Now, I was really interested to try and follow a wave of information that were in different videos on the internet and stuff. And I thought, I found this guy. And one interesting fact that I'm going to chuck at you is Marcus Aurelius's column is hollow. And Trajan's column is also hollow. You can walk all the way up to the top. It's the ascendancy to the gods, where these wonderful people, Trajan and Marcus Aurelius, became stoic gods who you could visit up in the heavens and look out over the eternal city of Rome that once was. And this guy, he managed to get access into the column itself. And this itself is the great basilica, which surrounded the column of Trajan. Now, you might be able to see it where he is today, but if you were a Roman where he is today, you wouldn't see it. It was shrouded in all these buildings around it, and it's beautifully decorated. Gold leaf, various other colorations, all the best from the Roman world. 126 feet, 38 meters. Well, that's the total original height, because the statue on top was a statue of Trajan, we do believe. However, the statue was replaced in the 1500s by a statue associated with St. Peter. Nevertheless, the story itself is still to be told. And the marble itself, the rich marble, the marble itself to create the column, the big column in front of us, Trajan's column, actually comes from a bit further north from Tuscany, the world of the Etruscans.
Oh, yes.
And interesting enough, the other marble itself, the beautiful other marble columns around are from other locations in Italy as well.
Oh,
So this is the guy you need to look at, Darius Arian Diggs. So if you go onto his channel, you can see his expedition into the column. Now, when I was looking and researching this from last week and the week before, what you need to do, you cannot get lots of this stuff off the internet. So I needed to get a book. I just thought, right, I needed to go out and get a book of just about this, and I need to examine little bits of the book, because so many people have got so many different things. But obviously when you've got an expert from the 1870s who had actually seen it, and an expert who had actually seen a copy, right? Because the one thing that people do in the reign of Emperor Napoleon III, whose reign sadly came to an end because of the Prussians getting, the upper hand over the French, the Germans having the upper hand over the French in the War of 1870. When Napoleon III was held up in Verdun, and you know all the rest of the story, he lost the war. But up until that point, he had an accurate replica made of this, and one was donated, several replicas. One was actually donated to it. It would later to become the Victoria and Albert Museum, the museum at Kensington, as it was once known then. And even looking at this, which is further up the column, you can get so much detail. You can get the detail of the trees, you can get the detail of the soldiers, you can get details of the animals, you can get details of a couple of people exhausted on the ground, you can get battle scenes, you can get all these different things. And windows. There are 40 windows, 20 on alternate sides of the column. I know it's a circular column and there's no real side, but sort of 20 on one angle and then 20 on another angle, so you can actually see a way up the stairs. And the accuracy of the carving, the accuracy into the carving of the marble is unbelievable. And one little fact is that the reason why I'm stressing the 38-meter height was that directly correlates to a hill that was here until they built the column.
Oh.
Emperor Trajan took away a hill. You think about King Canute, right? Well, Emperor Trajan took away a hill for the Carrara marble drums to actually be placed here from Tuscany. So we've actually got a description, we've got an inscription on it that gives a tribute to the great Emperor Trajan himself. So basically, the way to erect obelisks back then were to sort of use loads of scaffolding. But last night we discussed something else. It's very likely that Apollodorus of Damascus was aware of techniques which were being used in the Middle East, like the pyramids and so on, and likewise, that he would be aware that the best way to construct things is to use what you've got around you, right? So it's very likely that as they're quarrying out the hill, they quarried out the stuff in the middle first. So they were hacking all the stone out and so on, and they got the base level. And then that would give you a flat, secure base to build the column. However, what you would then do is you would create a V profile in the mined out hill all the way down to the base of the construction of this column. And then what you would then do is then you'd use both sides then to support the column as it's being erected, rather than just having a flat area and trying to create a column like that, right? Apollodorus was well aware of the constructional feats of the ancients. Damascus, not far away from Egypt at all, is it? And one thing that I was saying, this is the new forum of Trajan. So Trajan needed to remove all of this stuff to create this new epic, this sort of new area of building. So what was on that hill initially, nobody will ever know, because it was all removed. All the temples and all the other stuff were just removed. It must have been an absolute epic construction project. We're talking in today's money, billions of pounds to create the precinct for Trajan's column itself. Billions of pounds. Joe, when a historian say, oh, it cost like a couple of £100 million. Rubbish. In money back then, it was probably the capital exchequer excess and everything that had been generated for several years to actually create this one amazing feat. And you like me to sort of equate this to things in the Second World War. For example, if you want to base it on sort of things, the all the material that were used by the Germans at Stalingrad, right, which were captured by the Russians, equated to half a year's income for the German Reich. So you're talking about billions and billions of pounds in equipment being lost at Stalingrad. So to equate that to something like this, you're talking about billions of pounds being used over a period of 6 years to create this, to carve out a hill, to get the materials in, to have the workforce. This was a massive, massive, huge, unbelievable undertaking. And I'm going to say it, we'd not be able to do it today. We would not be able to do it today because we would be restricted not by health and safety laws. We'd be restricted by the way we build things. First of all, what we'd have had to have done was to clear the whole area and then bring everything in, and then there would be no supports for the column. You'd have to bring the cranes in and all the rest of it, right? It would take decades to build something like this using modern equipment. Back then, it took just under 6 years. So this is something really, really special. And what you've got inside it's difficult to look at a monument like this and try and understand that it's actually hollow inside. I actually thought there was more. 185 steps to get to the top. 185 steps. So we're basically going inside the column, which is 97 feet. So obviously the base, the pedestal at the base, you know, the capital at the top. So you're getting there to the statue. 185 steps. It makes the 39 steps look like a walk in the park, actually. And to create this, the drums themselves, right? The drums themselves, the width of them are about 4 meters. So it's about 4 meters width, just under 4 meters width. You look on the internet, it's about 3.8, but about 4 meters width. And there are altogether, to create this, the individual drums that have been hollowed out, right? And trying to put this across. So obviously you're hollowing out the drums, having to put the steps in and having to put everything in place. This is architecture at its unbelievable best. These are stonemasons, right? These are people that are far better than the St. John mason that was used to construct something, and all the stone that was used to create something like Carnarvon or Beaumaris or Conway or any of these structures. This is architecture which needs to be met engineering wise with complete precision. This is as good, and I'm going to say it, sorry Egyptians, this is as good as building the Great Pyramid at Pisa. This is the precision that we're using. Okay, right, okay, the Great Pyramid of Pisa is a lot bigger, you know, and so on, and what have you. That took 25 years. This just took over 6 years. But it's not the point. What I'm trying to get at, I'm trying to compare with. So Apollodorus was actually very aware of Damascus, that what they were doing with the likes of other monuments that he would have seen in his lifetime. And naturally, what you're doing on each of these drums, right? So all together to create the column itself with everything that's going on, you've got to make sure that you've got to put the windows in, you've got to put the steps into the carving, you've got to carve on the outside. All this has to meet completely accurately, right? And before anyone asks, was the carving placed on after the column was all put in place? And the answer is no. And the reason why the answer is no, frankly, no, because if one person made one single mistake, or they hit the stone in the wrong angle, the whole drum had split. So you can imagine, you'd erected it all, and then one person makes a mistake and you've got to take the whole thing down. No, folks. So when one piece of architecture is complete, you need to sit it. And then another piece of architecture is complete, another drum, and you need to sit it. All together, all the blocks and everything from the base to the capital, 29 blocks. And you're going up the steps, and to do a complete turn with lights on sort of either side, you've got 14 steps to do a full turn as you go up out of the 108. So go around 14 steps, and it's rather dark inside naturally. And taking a little torch, and it's very rare. If I was to go, there's the light coming in. If I wanted to see this, right, I would have to book a year in advance, and they probably only allow 20 people a year to go into it. I'd have to pay a lot of money, and yeah, it'd be well worth paying a lot of money to have the beautiful view over the likes of Rome. But I would also be standing in the locality that saw so much history. I'd be standing in the locality which was closer to Trajan, the deity himself, because lots of Roman emperors become gods,
I suppose you've
except
got,
except for somebody like Nero, and quickly.
I suppose you've got to walk all the way up. You can't stop, really.
No, you can't. No, you can't. No.
No.
Apparently, you get very giddy, so you've got to go all the way up, right? And
Oh God, I think it'd be.
the one thing about this is to try and read it. To try and read it, you can't read it. You can't look at unless you've got a scaffolding around the whole thing. You can't do it. There's been
Yeah.
damage caused by the carbon monoxide.
Oh,
Damage to it, right? So when they made a copy in the 1860s, obviously we got really good copies, and that's in lots of ways that's what we actually use. And the height of the original hill was the top of where the St. Peter's statue is now. So all of that was a hill. You can imagine that there's hundreds of thousands of tons of material having to be moved. So that's got to be moved through the already full bustling streets of Rome. So it's got to go back and forth. Can you imagine the amount of disturbance that caused for people for 6.5 years? But this was for Emperor Trajan. This was for one of the most amazing Roman emperors that they'd ever had. Forget about Hadrian, right? Don't forget about Marcus Aurelius, but forget about Hadrian. Trajan was the one who achieved much more, in my view, than Emperor Hadrian. Hadrian's actually remembered by us, right? He's remembered by us because Hadrian's Wall. But although Hadrian's an absolutely amazing emperor, right? Trajan is shaping Rome as it would go on for the next 1,800 years or so. So this itself said, and the immensity of this, and looking at the stories, it winds around the outside. The Italians are so proud of this monument. But what you're thinking about is the drums matching each other, right? Or each individual line, each individual figures. And there is an image here that you can actually tell that the drums were actually carved separately, right? And I'll show you that detail as we start to go through. But again, looking at this, going up the spiral staircase, what the thing you're ascending the godhead of Emperor Trajan himself. This is the man who commanded the armies to defeat the Dacians. This monument itself is associated with the victory over the Dacians. And one thing that I'm reminded is that you guys wanted me to look a bit more about the Dacian War, which we should do. Now we've done Trajan's Column. Now we're doing Trajan's Column, and what this is all about. This is what we know. We know the history of the Dacian War because of this column, right? That's fact. That's unbelievable. So if nothing survived in writing about the Dacian War, you would be able to look at this column, you'd be able to read the column, you'd be able to see it, you'd be able to, when we were children, remember we used to open the pages of the book and look at the pictures? This is what this is about. And this would all be colored. This would all be absolutely beautiful. Conversations, buildings, structures, pontoon bridges, sacrifices, all these different things. Children, there's children on this. There are women on this. There are warriors. There are Sarmatian horsemen. There are Dacian soldiers. There are auxiliaries. And one person asked the interesting question last night. We said, right, okay, after up on Hadrian's Wall, there's Dacian auxiliaries serving on Hadrian's Wall. So obviously, the wonderful Emperor Trajan had already defeated back to the previous war, which was the Second Dacian War. In 104, he defeated the Dacians, right? So what happened 2 decades later? what they would do, what they were already doing is enlisting Dacian soldiers as auxiliaries into the Roman army, and they'd send them to the most far off places like Hadrian's Wall. Interesting enough, nobody really ever talks about Britons. So when the Romans captured Britain, nobody ever talks about what happened to British auxiliaries. Where did they serve? Did we? So obviously the British auxiliaries would be serving so far away from Britain that they'd have to fight religiously for the Roman army to actually get back home after 25 years. And the point is, nobody ever talks about that. We talk about where the Dacians served, where we talked about the Hispanic people served, and all these different things. So all these wonderful questions. The one thing that is really missing with this is actually the color. And sometimes these shields would be beautifully colored. Their sort of wonderful uniforms would be covered. And what you can see there in the middle of the screen there, you can see a band there. That's basically between two drums. And being between two drums, it's sort of that was being carved. And so it's all lined up. It's all sort of stenciled out on the stone. And one thing I wanted to say earlier on was that even though this is a drawing from just a few hundred years ago, this drawing itself, I want to say that the Romans must have had equivalent drawings of this. They must have. They must have. Whenever you get drawings from antiquity, it's usually little sketches and drawings that have actually come to us from medieval people who have actually copied previous works, and it comes out like the medieval scribble, because the medieval people in Europe weren't very good draftsmen. But the Romans must have been to create something like this. They must have had drawings like this, but none of these things have survived. And this is what you see on the top, the statue of Saint Peter with the keys. And the one thing that we do know is that they replaced the statue of Trajan in the latter part of the 1500s. However, it may be that the statue of Trajan had actually come down hundreds of years earlier, if not had been removed when Rome fell to Ordovicius in the year 476 AD 476. And the one thing about that is that there may not have been anything on the top in the 1500s. So they thought, oh, we need a statue up there. Let's chuck it up there. So again, when you think about the Marcus Aurelius column, it's very different. Now, one point I made last night, right, and one thing I can't get, and we'll come back to these images, right. The one thing that I can't get in my head is what we've got. We've got all this intricate stuff, right, and they made a plaster cast copy of the entire monument. Now, when you make a plaster cast of something, right, it doesn't get into all the little bits and stuff. But however, what we do get with the images that we see replicated in copper, for example, and then that spiraled around the monument, I think it's in the Louvre, and you've got the example in Victoria and Albert, right? So I'm not sure it's there's one at the Louvre, but there's definitely another version in Paris. I'm assuming that's where it is. And so you've got the other example. Definitely know that's in Victoria and Albert Museum. It's so perfect. The copy is so perfect that it makes you think that did they actually use plaster of Paris, or did they use another technique, which is something that we always ask about these types of monuments. So this is looking down, and that would be the form. And the interesting thing about the form there is that this itself encapsulated this monument, and you've got a roof line. So the problem is with that roof line, it hid this monument. So you'd go up in the sort of verandas and all the rest of it, the first, second, third, fourth, whatever floor, and you'd be able to look at the column if you've got good glasses, and you could actually see the figures. But it's a very difficult monument to read unless you've got scaffolding around the whole thing, and you've got a spiral staircase going around the outside. You can actually see the height. And the Italians simply wouldn't do that because of safety concerns. And secondly, to put scaffolding around this, it would cost millions alone just to be able to do that, and it's not really worth it. But what if this monument itself was probably in somewhere like China? They would have put a big dome over it. You'd have had little glass steps along the outside, and you'd be able to read it. But it's not China. So this itself is the basilica, basilica of Opia, and this itself is got some of the finest marble, and this is being created within a landscape that all that material has been taken away to create this wonderful monument. This is a shrine to Trajan, and you see what I mean. You're looking at all those ruins, and many people will argue blue with me, but there are a few archaeologists who do agree with me that Mussolini in the 1920s and the 1930s did a wonderful thing by removing all the buildings that were there and exposing the Roman stuff, so that some of the buildings, including the Colosseum, could actually breathe. And some people argue, oh, Mussolini was a terrible man. He removed all these buildings that people were living in. But then they, at the same time, they don't seem to understand that if Mussolini hadn't done this, you would not be able to see the Colosseum. You'd not be able to see these monuments. You'd not be able to see the ruins, and the cash dollar wouldn't be coming into modern day Rome today, right? So, and
I
I've
think he
got
did.
hang on, Anne. I've got to praise the likes of Mussolini, because as an archaeologist in Italy, I would have a quite a cushy job for 20 years excavating all this stuff, and allowing people to see this for future generations for the next 1,000 years, and quickly.
I think he built purpose-built flats for them, tenements.
And nobody talks about that, do they?
No.
Right. Nobody talks about that. So this inscription, this is the entranceway in, and one thing that I don't actually get is what's going on here with this. This is a gouge into it, so they must have later on had sort of like a little porch of some description. But this inscription is really interesting, and it tells us everything about the story of this wonderful monument. And let's get my notes here. So this is the one thing that I did grab off Wikipedia. It's actually the description. So this actually reads, and I'll show some of it. Hang on a minute. There, and we move there, and let's get that. So basically, it reads the Senate, and then it says the populace, the people of Rome, Roman. There it is. It's clear as day. And it says to the divine. So what we've got, it's slightly half backwards. So it's to the divine. And it basically then says emperor. And it says Caesar. It then says Nerva, and then it says Trajan. So that inscription is pretty good. And then it goes on to talk about it goes back again to the son of Nerva, because we've got two Nervas, the son of Nerva, and it then goes into talking about the Augusta. He's the August emperor, and there you go, Germany. So he's talking about this is the conqueror of Germany, and the other word there, Dacia. So you can actually understand this inscription is placed there in 113. So these words for Germany and Dacia are words that we use today. Isn't that absolutely amazing? So if people have arguments saying, oh, where does the word Germany come from? It's there on the inscription. Can't argue with that. So he's the conqueror of Germany and Dacia. And then it goes on to say he's got the pontiff, the power vested in him into the tribune, and he's the imperator, the emperor of this wonderful world. And he's also the father of the nation. So he's basically the declared father of the nation. And he demonstrates, and this is where my Latin sort of moves away. It's then demonstrated in the rest of the inscription that he demonstrated he himself, because he's divine. He's the divine Caesar Nerva Trajan. He's the divine Augusta who demonstrated that he could move a mountain. He moved a mountain. That's a lot more than King Canute. He moved a mountain, and a place of such height were excavated for such works. And in that, this is a vestige of the greatness of an amazing Roman emperor. And all of these carvings, all these swords, all these caps, these angels on the top there, as you enter this wonderful monument. And this itself is the burial place of first himself and then his wonderful wife. So this is the amount of money that Marcus Ulpius Trajanus managed to raise is unbelievable. The only way he was able to create this was because of the wealth that was generated from his campaigns against the Germans and the campaigns against the Dacians. It must only say how rich the Dacians and the German people were. And his wife Pompeia Platina was eventually buried here. Her ashes were buried here approximately in the year AD 122. So you enter these doors and you go into the monument, and then you have the spiral works. And you can imagine, again, you would not have been able to see this from that angle because there was all buildings there. And if I don't know why I did it this way, but what we've got, oh my God, let's look at the amount of stuff we've still got to do. So this is the precinct. This is what the precinct. Oh, hang on, where's it gone? Precinct. Hang on. I had just had a precinct. There. This is what the precinct looked like. So there is. You can imagine. You know, when I say the amount of tonnage that was used to create that, and most of that was in marble, and that was created within under 7 years. There's libraries. There's research rooms. There's basically a temple associated with Trajan. It's all there. And you can see that it's just a speck. The column itself is a tiny speck compared with all the other buildings. And you can imagine if you were standing there outside the walls, you wouldn't be able to see the column. And in fact, you move away a little bit further, there's other buildings, and you would not have been able to really get an angle to see the column itself. So the point is with all of this is that the majesty and the greatness of this monument, sort of the embodiment of the shrine associated with Trajan himself. So what we're going to do, I'm going to probably speed through the next images a little bit. So again, we've done that, we've looked at that, we know the view, we've done this, and obviously not being able to see that. So again, that angle, getting an idea and an impression, right? Getting the sort of grip of that. You can see all the bits of other column that are fallen around, but this column itself, this actual column itself is just dwarfing everything else, and it does survive. And it's not been a column that's come down; it's a column that's survived. The column associated with Phocas's column that survived standing in the forum itself. Marcus Aurelius's column didn't. It was demolished. Right. We've only got not that again. That's wrong. Antonius's pious column was demolished. Marcus Aurelius's column remained up. So Marcus Aurelius' column remained up. Trajan's column remained up. And these are all the amazing things. You go into the steps. The steps are so well formed. The view, and look at that there. Look over to the Colosseum. Now I'm going to make a little bit of a statement. Would you have been able to see the Colosseum? Because in the way there would be so many buildings, so many imperial buildings. Would you have been able to see the Colosseum? You can see it today, and I think it's one of those things. So that and there's a bit of a debate amongst historians, because there was meant to have been planned an eagle to have been placed on the top of this, not a statue associated with Trajan. So again, looking at that sort of, all this, all the landscape associated with the Renaissance and early Roman stuff and medieval stuff and the much later stuff, and the Forum of Trajan, and there it is. I mentioned it was Opia, Opia, ULPIA. Again, that's a bit closer there. The Colosseum, and there you go. More in more recent times, again, basically next door. It makes you wonder what Roman remains are under the Vittoriano. And you're just thinking, well, we'll never know, except there's sewers and all sorts of stuff there. And if they ever do subsidence work like they did in York with York Minster, we find Roman stuff. So if they ever need to do subsidence stuff, then look into the footings. We might find we'd find the Roman stuff. Remember, the Roman remains under sites like this are 3 or 4, 5, 6 meters below, so they might be really well standing stuff. But again, let's just keep this building. And Piazza Venezia, and this was one of the things that up until the time of Mussolini in the 1920s, that was all crammed with buildings, and now it's all been cleared. It was part of Mussolini's idea to have a great plaza for people to have victory marches down the streets into the old imperial city of Rome. Again, loads of little images.
Right.
So give you an idea where this is. So we've got the we've got the red mark there, monument of Vittorio Emanuele, and then you look down, you've got the Forum of Rome there, and the Arch of Titus. There it is, and again, smack bang in the center of Rome. So this was an amazing feat, and for Trajan to basically say, look, we're just going to whip away what was there before. Whoever created it, we're just going to whip it away. And that's exactly what happened. There you go. And there you go. This is the column base of Antoninus Pius. So there's 4, we know of 4 columns altogether. There may be more. And the reason why we might know that there are more columns, right, is if you find a coin of a Roman emperor with a column on it. Now, I remember years ago, I used to buy Roman coins, and then I used to sell them. And when on one coin, I can remember I actually had a column on it, but I can't remember which Roman emperor that was. And if you find a column on a Roman coin for an emperor, it might mean that there was a column in Rome that we don't know about. Right, and that would be a victory monumental column. Was that bigger than Trajan's? Was it the same size as Trajan's? The one thing about Trajan is that he was able to raise the billions of pounds that were required to create his monument. And Marcus Aurelius was in the same vein. Marcus Aurelius is an emperor who died in the 180s, this is Antonius Pius, who's before Marcus Aurelius. So what we've got Trajan, we've got Hadrian, we've got Antoninus Pius, and then we've got Marcus Aurelius. So Marcus Aurelius is this emperor that dies in AD 180 that's replaced by Commodus. Obviously, you know about Gladiator and all of them, and the rest of it, and rise and fall of the Roman Empire with Christopher Plum. I think it was 1968. So, but this itself, again, this is Antoninus Pius, one of the other great Roman emperors. And I just want to give you a few dates here. Now, I always remember saying to Michelle, I've got a book here which was worth 250 quid, and I'm flicking through it now. It was a limited edition what I got when I was about 10. I didn't realize the value of it, but I've been using it for lectures ever since. So what we've got, if we think the great period of Roman emperors was AD 98. Trajan, who reigned until AD 170, died of natural causes, reigned for nearly 20 years. Then you've got Emperor Hadrian, who died of natural causes, who reigned for nearly 21 years. Antoninus Pius died of natural causes, who reigned for 22 years. Then you've got the great Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, who actually had some kind of disastrous plague on his watch in about AD 160s, but he was a great victor over the likes of the Germanic people. He reigned for 19 years. In the films, it shows that Marcus Aurelius is poisoned. He's not. He dies of natural causes. And then Commodus takes over, right? Commodus reigns for 12 years. He's assassinated. The next Pertinax is assassinated. Didius is condemned to death. Emperor Niger, he's killed. Claudius, Clodius, he commits suicide. We've got one other emperor, Septimus Severus, who dies of natural causes, and most every other emperor after that is assassinated. The likelihood of dying a natural death of an emperor is extremely rare. Most people were assassinated. Even Nero, even the likes of Claudius, even the likes of Julius Caesar, who was never an emperor, but a dictator. So, again, looking at something like this, and one thing that somebody noticed last night associated with Antoninus Pius's base of his column was, look at this, we've got Britannia, or a figure that looks like Britannia. And then you've got this sort of warrior that looks from maybe the Persian domains. And then you've got these angels. You've got an angel there, and you've got these sort of eagles of victory. And then you've got a typical Roman family, and you're actually thinking, and on the side as well, monuments like this were meant to be for you, right? This is you. This is your embodiment of Rome. You are at home at home. You're at home in Rome. This is the Roman era. You are aspired to be Roman by looking at these monuments. You associate with this. Rome itself was meant to be the archetypal dream of peace. Let's move on from that word. So again, this is what I was on about the coins themselves. This is what we know when you want to compare the likes of the column of Antoninus Pius that was just under 15 meters tall, while Trajan's was 38 meters. It says that there's no actually carvings around the column itself, but we don't really know that. And we know about the existence of the column because Antonius Pius had a coin associated with it. We didn't know where it was. We didn't know where any of it was, but eventually it was found. So you've got four here. So the ones that we know of: Trajan's column, Marcus Aurelius' column, and what you've got, Antonius Pius's column, and Phorcys' column. Now, so we may have other monumental erected columns in victories of emperors. Now, as you can understand, that Hadrian may have had one of these columns. We don't never know where it was. It may be buried. It may be in a collapsed state. That is the column of Phorcys, or Phorcys. Now, Phorcys is one of those. He was actually a Byzantine emperor who the Byzantine Empire split away officially from Rome. You know, the Western Roman Empire is the Western and the Eastern Roman Empire in the late 300s. Basically, you could look at when the likes of Constantine the Great died in Constantinople, modern day Istanbul, in the year AD 337. That was possibly the initial start of the division of the Roman Empire. But this is when the Western Roman Empire was basically finished, and then the Byzantine emperor decided to recover Rome. And in tribute of him recovering Rome, he donated a huge column that would then be a column that he donated to Pope Boniface IV, and they offered that the Pantheon could be converted into a church. But at that stage, Rome was in ruins, very much. I think that's the Arch of Is, oh God, is that I think that's the Arch of Constantine the Great. I'm not exactly sure. So one thing, I was looking at this and I thought, I was looking at this image. Now this has to be post 1930s. It looks like the street. It looks like a scene where you might see the Brandenburg Gate burnt out in the heart of Berlin in 1945. However, it's not. This is you've got the column of focus there on the left. You've got the Forum area. You've got the Great Arch there. I'm sure that's of Constantine. And the one thing, this is actually an image, and you can actually see from the clothing there, and an Italian family there. And I'm looking at that and thinking this is when lots of the stuff had actually been cleared. So there you go. But again, this gives you, can you see that figure there? These monuments are actually dwarfing everything there, even today. So Trajan's Column, there it is, and a beating heart of Rome. And this defines that Saint Peter, the apostle, and the representation of Saint Peter, the apostle, and the representation of him being placed on the top of Trajan's Column. There you go, in 1587 by Pope Sixtus V, or Pope Six V, or whatever that means, Sixtus. So what we're going to do after the break, we're going to go into this. We're going to try and understand, and these images are quite clear, and you can see the exploits. And we look at, we don't look at all these scenes, you know, we just look at a few scenes to get an idea. And that's what we get into the nitty gritty. And what I'm probably going to do is we'll have a just give me. I know some of you. We've probably finished. Probably finish about maybe 9:20. If you can give me that. I know Richard wants to leave a little bit earlier, but if we have, I've got to fiddle with my sheep for a little bit, and so if you can, and I got to put the kettle on. So if we have a little bit of a chat, and we'll go from there. So stop sharing. Sharing is caring. Right, mic's on, please. And Goff hasn't put his light on yet, but that's life. Anything you want to say, Anne? No.
Oh, obviously, I just realised that it's only really this century, isn't it, that they've taken away the medieval buildings. So yeah, it's I thought he was right to do it, but of course all the people live in apartments now, all the way out, you know, to the ends of the city. So it's quite a bus ride in. But he obviously wanted to get all the people out of the centre, you know.
I think it was important when if you want to compare, for example, the heart of London and the heart of Berlin. Rome itself was congested, right? And I believe what Mussolini did was the right thing to do.
Yeah, better facilities and housing.
Exactly. And even new housing, new sewage systems and all the rest of it. So you imagine sort of electric pylons going across the center of the Colosseum, and you know, it just didn't go. Anyway, thanks for that, Anne. Anything you'd like to say, Goff?
No, it's fascinating. Good images. Look forward to the next bit.
More to come. Richard?
Yeah, really good pictures. You know, it's good. The figures and everything still survives quite well.
Yeah.
It's exposed to the all weathers.
Exactly. Absolutely beautiful, and surviving after all this time. Obviously the paint and stuff's come off, but that's what we've got. Anyway, thank you for that.
Went to Rome.
Yeah.
Would have been a bit handy.
Yeah.
I think it would have been, and you could have impressed everybody. You could give them a full talk then. You may have got in to have a look at the that's life.
There you go. I have to wait for another time.
Yeah.
There you go. There you go. I think my recognition by foreign powers went down in the estimations when I was meant to be working at the Baghdad Museum in 2003, but that's life. Anyway, so anything you'd like to say, Pat?
Just that I was amazed about the detail. You know, the detail that's still there, and you know, you would have thought it would have washed off or disappeared or something. but it's amazing. And so many figures, hundreds of them. You know,
Well, actually, I can give you some facts and figures. There are 2,600 figures on the column itself, 2,600, and there are 58 individual representations of Trajan himself.
58.
Basically, it's a storybook. It's an unwritten storybook, so you could read this and you can get an idea of what's going on. So,
But they couldn't
yeah,
see
exactly.
it.
It's amazing. So we're going to look at that, some of that after the break. So anyway, thanks for that, guys. It's now 8:13. I want us to be back, say about 28 minutes past 8. So guys, put the kettle on. I got to fiddle with my sheep and I'll be back.
I got Trojans on my computer. Don't know about Trajan. I
I don't care about your
Trojans.
Trojans. Anne, go and make yourself a cup of tea. I'll be back.
All right. I bet.
Hello.
Oh, been well, it's the end of summer now.
I know. I know. Oh,
Would you
I'm
still
going.
like to do a trip to Garou?
All right.
Well, they do like. Oh, you've been, haven't you?
Where is it?
Did you go to Garou Pottery or did you go to Swamp?
Oh no, I don't think I did.
You did you?
No.
Oh, well, we can have. I was thinking of trying to get a little group of us to go,
Yeah.
but nobody else wants to come, so it'll be just us two.
You and I. Is it? Where is it?
It's by Tapswell.
Oh.
It's it is a bit out of the way. It's sort of you can get to it from the Pontypridd side, so like from Talbot Green, and then go through Church Village and that sort of way, or you can just go down the motorway and turn left up, Cardiff, go to Cardiff, turn left up there.
Sounds good.
And then you can have that, you can have Barrabrith and tea and Welsh cake.
Yeah.
Well, they do lunches as well, but they like I'll have to check it out.
Yeah. What's it called again?
Hmm?
What's it called?
Nant Garw. Oh, it's called. Oh, I don't know. It's Welsh name, but it's
Oh,
Nant Garw China Works,
oh, right. Okay.
and it's got beautiful Nant Garw pottery. China. It's porcelain. It's the only porcelain It's the only remaining porcelain factory I think it's in the world.
Right.
Yeah, because well, I don't know if it's in the world, but anyway, we can meet up for coffee sometime for a change,
Yes, yes. On Friday, I'm gonna go away for 5 nights.
Oh yeah.
We're going to
Oh,
go up to
you don't let the grass grow around you, do you?
no, no, gonna see Lewis and
You're gonna see.
Harris. Stornoway, the Hebrides. I'm gonna see a bit of the Hebrides. Sky
Oh yes,
and
of course.
Lewis and Harris.
Oh, I think the weather will probably improve.
Hopefully it'll get a little better. I need to figure out what to put.
I better go and have
stuff.
my coffee.
Yeah, I better move, okay? See you
Yeah.
soon.
Right. There's no room in this room. No room in my room anymore. What's that? Oh, that's flashing lights. I can't watch that. Oh dear. Typical of Carl, he walks away and he's left his screen, giving us all EBGBs. Oh, okay.
It's very nice to look at, isn't it?
Huh?
So it's not very nice to look at.
No. That's health hazard. Well, I hope this water gets our reservoirs a bit fuller.
Yeah, I've had a bit of me lately.
Mm,
Buckling down here.
yeah. Well, we need it. But
Oh, yeah.
gotta say that. Oh, I love these little Greek yogurt trifles.
Ah,
Are they yakos or something?
yeah.
Ah. Mhm.
Back again. Are you ever going to sell up and move away, Anne?
Oh, funny you should ask that.
Oh, right. You are you?
Well,
Well, go on then.
well, it's still a problem really because yeah, I would like to live closer to my daughter, but I don't know if they want me to live closer to them or if
Oh,
they're gonna, if they're gonna move. I don't know. I mean,
all right. Well, they could move in with you.
oh, their house is bigger than ours.
All right. They own it, do they?
No, I mean it's being bought. Yeah, it is being bought.
All right. Okay. Anyway, let's crack on. So so let's get into the figures. Let's get into the sense. Let's get into the imagery, and let's see where we go with this. So one of the things that I found when I was get to images proper, the descriptions that I've got in the book uh, are slightly different from what you might find today because they've worked out the panels in a different format. But one clear thing that you can actually see is the line going through. And we look at some really clear ones in the moment, but this actually shows it really well. You've got the line going through there, right? And you can actually clearly see that that is a slightly different color than that color. And you can actually see there that although there's alignments, the carving is slightly different. And when I was looking at this, I thought, it's obviously been etched in, it's been sketched in, it's been direction on it where all the heads need to perfectly align and stuff. But for me, it sort of looked like these were obviously carved in different localities by different craftsmen. And obviously, each of these drums is an incredible individual piece of art. So let's move on. Let's just see where we go with this. Now, these images are extremely clear, and I was so lucky to get this. So what we've got when we're looking over in Romania, we're looking over that landscape. So the first scene represents the low marsh lands of the banks of the river Save. So that at the bottom is the river, the ripples of the river, and then is it a tributary to the Danube. And what you see is these sentinels, these towers, and you've got the scene which we look at all of this. We look at all this individually, and what you do have is this. You've got these little buildings. So these are all little sentry buildings. These are sort of all individual structures, and these are watchtowers on our side, on the western side of the frontier. That then you move east, you go into the landscape of Dacia. So naturally, what you're looking at is these are actually plaster casts, and then the plaster casts. They had a copper. They used the plaster cast to then act as a mold, and then you've got the cast in copper, and then this was all sort of decorated and stuff. But there are different forms of this. I think this is the plaster version. But one interesting thing, these little sort of frontier posts, these are like the mile castles that you would have along the likes of Hadrian's Wall, except the mile castles along Hadrian's Wall would have had stone walls around them with a stone building in the middle. This has got like a picket fence around the outside. So these are the watchtowers, and the detail is really interesting because if you look at my book Romans in South Wales, you do see Michelle has done a reconstruction of a building like this without actually knowing what one of these looked like, and it looks exactly the same. So there we go. And actually, look there. There's a little figure. Actually, we don't do miniatures on this, but there is a figure poking out of there. So we've got lots of real detail. So then as you've got this of one of two of these as you actually get to the other scenes, and this all develops. Now naturally this would all be painted in the representations I've seen. That would be a blue background actually, so they painted it blue in the National Geographic representations. So then what you've got, this whole scene slowly starts to develop, and it slowly starts to develop in the whole detail that you actually have there. So what you, unfortunately, the figures at the base are not as detailed as the figures further up. So two of these figures are actually auxiliary figures, and two of them are actually Roman figures. And what you've got here is a little bit more finer detail, where you've got the stacks of material required to keep the furnace going in regards to the light that protrudes from this watchtower. So you've got stocks of wood, you've got packs here in the triangle form of your brushwood and so on, and you've got this little tower. This is again typical of a representation of a watchtower in regards to this landscape. There's so much detail in this book about the reliefs themselves, the bas reliefs themselves, and the cloak itself that these wear, they're all wearing cloaks. These guys, there's four of them all together, one off the screen. They're all wearing what's known as a sagum, and this is actually held together around the neck by a Roman fibula. So these are actually watch soldiers. And then what you have then is you go on to the other detail, the boat detail, as it moves along again. So you can see there that this is actually from the column itself, and this is actually the plaster cast. And you've got these figures, and then you've got the water in front, the river, the tributary to the Danube, the River Save, and then it moves on a little bit for you. You've got two of these towers, and again, the detail of the towers, the fact that these are signal stations. So when one signal station is being attacked by the Dacians, the other one lights their torch, and then it goes on down the line. But this is the real detail. So you've got a bit of detail from a panel above, but this is where we get some really interesting information. So what you've got two other soldiers here. You've got 6 soldiers so far. We've got 2,600 figures. These are the 6 soldiers, and these are storage depots. So they're disembarking from the storage depots, and so what you've got, these are filling little boats, and then we're really thinking that these pairs of men are very much to laden these boats with the supplies for the impending expedition to invade the Dacian landscape beyond the river Danube. So there's a lot of detail. There's a lot of detail. You know, you've got the guard houses. You know, we've just passed the guard houses. These guard houses and the signal towers and the arrangement of all them. And you can obviously see from that guy there that they've got an oblong shield. So that guy's an auxiliary. But these two guys actually fill in the boats. Now, there's one interesting thing. These two guys, one interesting thing that changes the narrative. And the narrative changes. That when you're talking about the Roman world, you're typically thinking about amphora, but these are barrels. These are bound barrels that would be more akin to wooden barrels that you might see used for sort of some cottage industry sort of makers today. So
these were remodeled in medieval times, was it?
No, this is the real thing.
Oh, right.
No, and this is the original thing. This is carved in 113. None of this is remodeled. This is the original thing. This is it.
Oh,
so
right.
anyway, cracking on. So those barrels themselves are going to contain wine, oil, and vinegar. And interestingly enough, these are actually rowed by 2 broad paddles to the rear. So what we've got is that we've got these small vessels, these small boats, and these boats laden with the casks. Now, interestingly enough, what we have on the other boat, if we want to go with that, hang on, have we got this image? No, we've got the other boat there. That one is actually laden, and we know what's in there. That's laden with bundles, and those bundles themselves are sacks full of grain. So these are all getting ready for this campaign that runs out onto the next images. So everything's in place. They're gonna go forth, and this is where we are. And the other thing as well is what you have, we've got a town here, a named town. Unfortunately, obviously that probably would have a name on it written back in the day, but not inscribed. So we've got this house, we've got these buildings, and is the town a place known as a Puregia? Is this Puregia? That's the point. So what you've got all these buildings, you've got all these temples, sort of indicating you've got all this wonderful arrangement of the town. And look at the detail of the water, and that's basically showing that the Danube is extremely choppy. But then what next comes is the first image of Trajan himself, the first representation of the emperor. And this is there's so much in this. So what we've got a third boat there, and we've got some more barrels. This is all ready to go off. This is all to supply the men. This is all to supply the army. And what we do have, typical, we've got a pontoon bridge. And that there is a deity, that there is a god. Let's look at the god in a little bit of detail. This individual is known as a sort of enlarged. All the other figures are sort of the same size, right? Or naturally affecting the size associated with each other. But this is a demi god of the Danube. This figure is known as a Numan. This figure should be watched. You should be very careful when crossing the Danube. So as they leave, if this is actually Perugia, as they leave through the arch, and there are the soldiers ready to go off. And what we have is a really great description of what they're actually carrying. So they're all wearing a short linen tunic, and what we do have is some of them are officers, some of them are actually carriers of the legionary standard. We've got infantry, we've got cavalry. So as we look at individual soldiers, and we look at the detail that we have there, they're just leaving the gate. We've got the detail. Now, interesting enough, the perspective of the buildings is actually out, but the figures, you've got muscles on them, right? Because if you look at the detail, those muscles on the demigod. This is the plaster cast. So look at the details, the muscles. So very interesting stuff there. And also what you do have is not forgetting other little bits of detail. You know, you've got trees, you've got various trees. That there is actually an oak tree, because I can tell it's an oak tree because I can still look at the leaves. They're oak leaves, right? So you've got oak leaves, you've got oak, and you've got a rocky bank, right? So there they are leaving over the pontoon bridge. And anyone from any period would know what a pontoon bridge is. You've got barges that are laid across the river. They're all anchored together. And then you've got a walkway, and the army marches across, thousands and thousands of men. This would be familiar with any military campaigner. So what we do have is that on their breast themselves, you can actually get an idea. They're wearing light breast and back plates of iron armor. Now, what it is, it's known as lobster scale shoulder pieces. So you can get an examination of what they're wearing with the bands of armor, ribs all the way down to the groin. And this is all tied up with leather and thongs and so on. Now, the armor itself, they're not wearing any helmets, because the helmet itself is there. Hang on. These are the helmets. They're basically the heavy helmets themselves. They're basically hinged. The cheek guards are hinged, so you can actually wear them on your chest. And interesting enough, looking at this is that when you look at the detail, you know, I mentioned the other week that it's typically thought that Roman legionaries shaved. Well, most of them have actually got beards. And I mentioned that last night with that sort of ghost story of those auxiliaries. So these are not auxiliaries because they got the typical legionary shields. Now these legionary shields would have been covered, right? So they're only unfurled, they're only uncovered when they're actually going into battle. So what you do have is, so the helmets are basically slung over the shoulder in the front there, and obviously you've got all the shields, and then you've got something really interesting, right? On the top of the pilum. The pilum itself is this spear that you throw, that you've got a wooden shaft, and then the arrow itself is a long spike, and then you've got an arrow tip, and that when you hit a shield that would bend. However, that was strong enough to actually support their backpack. These themselves are the backpack, right? So we've got the detail of these backpacks, all these backpacks. So they're actually holding all these backpacks aloft. So what you do have is, when you go into this, that there is a goat skin. That goat skin is typically full of wine or vinegar, part of their rations. And also what you then have is this here. These are described as nets. Okay, so you can clearly see the backpacks, but then above you've got nets, and these nets themselves were actually full of fruit, meat, fresh bread, and then you have all the typical things that they need. Somewhere along there's their toilet brush. Each soldier's got a number of ladles. You can see number of ladles, number of pots, all these different things that these individuals are actually carrying. A pot, a stew pan, upright handle. So all of this, they're all ready to go off. And then you get other details. And the other details are actually further on. And we can get a little bit more detail of these individuals here. They've got bear skins. They're standard bearers. They're aquifers or vexillifiers. There's actually 3 different types to it: signifers, aquifilias, ingimiferias, or draconurias. And these are actually holding the standards. These are the cohort standards, the military standards that these are actually carrying. And aquifilias. So all of this is actually giving you great detail. If we move on to the next slide. So what we've got is areas again. And there they are. You've got, they're all ready for battle. You've got 4 different types of standard bearers. The aquifilias are the typical ones. The signifers, the other ones, the draconarias, the imaginiferias. All of these themselves, these are standard bearers. So what you have, they're all wearing, hang on, get rid of that. They're all wearing wolf skins, right? These are distinctive individuals. And all these individuals, and I don't know who's just left us, but all of these individuals themselves represent the level of standard bearing as they go into battle. This is where they would all be recognized and all understood in the sense of battle and going out to war. Trajan never rode on a march, but had his horse led before him. So very interesting. So he's this commander who's gone off to battle, walking alongside his men. Because at the end of the day, if you're on a horse, you're going to get there quicker before your army, and you're not going to be much of an example to your men. If you march yourself alongside the man, you're one of the men, and you're given the same respect. And I can actually show you which one is the likes of Trajan. The first time you see Trajan. So obviously you've got the boats, you've got the barges, and you've got and the horses are being led. But one of the horses are actually being led for Trajan himself. And the one who is actually Trajan is this man. That's Trajan. And Trajan itself is actually leading. You can actually see his hand being drawn out before him. So the band of individuals, all of this going in, this is the typical indicator of this military genius. And if you're all full of hearing about of Hadrian, Trajan again is the one that the other emperors like Hadrian, like Antonius Pius, like Lucius Verus, another emperor we mentioned, and also the likes of Marcus Aurelius, they aspire to be like Trajan, but they were never able to achieve the feats of this amazing deity, this man who becomes immortal with his ashes placed into the base of the very Trajan's column himself that he had built in his lifetime. And there it is. This is from the plaster cast, and you can actually see that there he is, and amongst all his men and soldiers. But this isn't, and horses. This isn't just to show the likes of men going into battle. There's children on it. There's women on it. There's horses on it. There's bulls. And all this earlier stuff at the bottom, going into the earlier frames. So we've done all of this here. We've looked at the first bit of the spiral, and this is the expedition for the first Dacian War. However, we've only looked at a few figures, and remember the column itself in length is 97 feet. So you've got all these drums. You've got all these drums going up and up and up. And 19 drums altogether are 29 blocks of stone used to create the whole thing. Lots used in the base. So again, remembering this, we've got some more images to look at. We look at the Second Dacian War briefly towards the end, and it's sort of worked out okay tonight because I've managed to get through more. And the one thing that I experienced last night is everyone was quiet throughout the whole thing. I was really nervy because I just thought, oh my God, what's going on? But it basically held everybody's attention, which was really good, and I really appreciated that, as we have done very similarly tonight. So this is giving you again an idea of the landscape that was all constructed, the precinct associated with the Mecca that was the deity that is in fact Emperor Trajan. And there it is, sort of little lost in the middle. And looking at these scenes, this is another scene where Trajan, there he is at the front. Now he's always leading, and his hand's out, his left hand is out leading. It's basically saying, we're going to come this way. Like Aquilifa's there, all the standard bearers, and they're going into battle. So this was the time when Rome meant something. So again, what I did last night. Who is that? Are you still there, Richard?
Yeah, it's Anne coming back.
Can you let her on, please?
Yeah, I am. Huh.
Oh, good. Oh, well
That's
done. Well done. So this is one of the things that I want to explain earlier on. So what you have, this is a denarius of Trajan, and it clearly shows this victory column. So there are other emperors' coins that have actually come across that actually have this column on there, but I don't see them actually having a column associated with them surviving today. You can see the spiral on this one. This is typically not typical. SC at the permission of the Senate. So there you go. You got the spiral going around, and this itself tells us that this is inscribed. There's a column somewhere, and we do know about the column today. Now, they were just planning to put a victory eagle on top, but somebody had the bright idea about putting a statue of Trajan on it. Now we've got 58 impressions of the wonderful Emperor Trajan on the column, and the one thing that we do see is a mixture of scenes on there. There's only a few battle scenes. There's marching scenes. There's scenes where he enters towns and cities where there's women and children and other townsfolk. And you've got the signal towers, and you've got the layout and pontoon bridges, and you've got the food, and you've got the trees, and you've got all sorts of things going on there, all the detail. But these are images of Emperor Trajan in a sense that he is actually going to shrines. There's a dedication to the gods in connection with this campaigning. I think the ones on the left are actually from the original. I think the ones on the right might actually be the plaster cast, but he's got this sort of gown over his head. These are some of the images associated with, these are all the plaster cast images. See, these are some of the images associated with Trajan as he's riding on horseback. I was looking at this last night, and I just thought, look at that. I know that's the plaster cast version, but his face is almost sinking into the stone, or his face is actually sinking out of the stone. And it's rather interesting that all these subtleties and the creation of the face, the ears, and the perfection that you would understand a Roman emperor would look like. He's got a big uter like me. Now, what I did last night was sort of said, oh, let's just go away from some of the images, which we will try to do in the sort of next 20 minutes, and hopefully that will be fine. The Trajan column's basic statistics now. So what we got St. Peter's statue replaces. We've actually got two dates. The other date said 1587. This date says 1588. Pope Sixtus the Fifth. And so what we've got, the fate of the original statue of Trajan, which topped the column, is not known, either when it fell or when it was removed, and how it was recycled. So the column itself for Trajan would have been mightily heavy. It's possible that the bronze statue of Trajan may have weighed up to a ton. So how they got that down and how that worked, I don't know. And actually, forensically, archaeologists could probably trace what happened to the statue. And how forensically we would do that, if you examine the ground around Trajan's column, you might get some kind of stress marks involved in some of the stone around. And the fracture lines and stress lines in that stone would indicate an impact from a statue that was 1 ton. And you could trace when that happened. And that's not in the notes. We as archaeologists can do that forensically today. This is why you come along to my presentations, to get those little extra snippets. So dedication, 12th of May, in the year 113, AD 113. This is another 4 years that he's going to pass away. As I said, you've got these 19 drums to create the shaft, and altogether 29 blocks. And these are 3.8, in the column itself, 3.8 meters wide. 1,100 tons in weight. Amazing, that. Absolutely amazing. And it's obviously the marble that's being used to create that. So what I then did was to go. So I went to page 151 in the book. So we've moved from 107 to 151. You can imagine that would be 50 pages of if had all these panels in front of us. So more of the bas reliefs, and this is the second Dacian War in AD 104. So they mean business this time. They're sort of going off. There's triumphal stuff going on. You've got the galleys, and we were sort of talking about the detail of this last night. And so they're going off. You got the temple, sort of going off into battle, into the second campaign. And you've got the rowers. And spot which one is Trajan. Yes, he's the guy in the middle there, looking extremely strident. And you didn't mention it, but there's a bird there. There's an eagle. You can see a little eagle there. Amazing, all this detail. So as we get and as we look at this, and I think what we're going to do, we're going to look at more of these boats. We did that last night, sort of. I think the ones we did, we're looking at this. And this is this amazing scene, and the boats that you're actually seeing as they're going off. They're going to the right hand of the screen. sort of typical triremes, and you've got another party of individuals ready to welcome them on the Dacian side, because obviously this is a colony on the Dacian side, and you've got the details of the triremes, the boats, the individuals there, and you've got the commanders of the boats, and again the detail of the choppy waters that they're actually fighting against in regards to the Danube itself. So what they're doing, these individuals are waiting in a reception for the emperor himself. So we're actually using in regards to the plaster cast now, because the earlier stuff, this is halfway up basically. So you're not really going to get these images very accurate at this angle. So we're reliant on the plaster cast to read this now. And all of this is going to understand and being welcomed into the state of the city. And you've got all these individuals waiting. There's a reception on the left-hand side. They're waiting to receive the emperor. Now, on my description, this is scene 63. Now, the Roman fleet makes for one of the more important colonies on the Danube, and a port surrounded by quays. This wonderful city, and these are colonists. There's a crowd of colonists, and lots of them have got cloaks, and so they're waiting to receive this wonderful emperor. You know, this guy's going to become the deity, and there they are. They're so you come to us. You're welcome to the colony. And then there's the triumphal procession. And all of this is associated with the triumphal procession. So this is actually I'm stand corrected. This is actually the copy still. So yeah, this is the copy. Yeah. And so they're welcoming the emperor in, welcome emperor. Please, you're welcome into our city. And then what you've got another trireme there, and you've got the wonders of understanding and welcoming. They're talking about the emperor, come through, and I do believe that figure might be the emperor on the left there. I'm not exactly sure, but I think that's the emperor there again. So another representation of the emperor. And obviously what you've got, there's a little interesting detail alongside this city. If we can get the context again, there's another boat there. And one little detail that one of our gang last night looked at. So when we got here, we basically said, actually, if you look on the prow of the vessel, there's a little miniature representation of another trireme. So there's a trireme on a trireme. And again, I think this is more of a trading vessel, bringing the supplies in and so on, and all the rest of it, and giving more of the boat detail. Now, you've got the trireme there, and it's obviously poetic architectural license. The figures are huge compared to, but this is the one thing that they do on this. They don't show mini people, right? So the idea of perspective, the perspective of the vehicles in the scale is wrong in compared to the figures, but the figures are standardized throughout the whole thing. Other than that one little figure at the beginning, a little miniature figure in the building looking out the door, all of these figures are about the same scale, except when you get little people who are actually children. So they're the right scale as well. So again, they got the procession into. Now we're going into the procession. We're going into the city itself. They're welcoming the emperor. They're saying, "Welcome, emperor. You're welcome into our city." And what they've got as they go into there, they go. So they're not. It's a typical Roman salute, like a sort of fist out, sort of welcome, not the hand as in a Nazi salute, but sort of get the hand out. You welcome you. Punching in the air. You welcome to the triumphal procession. You're here. And the one disadvantage I've got with showing you this today is that the National Geographic stuff, the small stuff that I can get from the National Geographic, and if there's anybody out there watching this on YouTube, if they could chuck £25 donation through, I could get the book and I could actually show you the National Geographic stuff, the illustration, and that would be absolutely wonderful, right? Chuck a donation out there. So, but there we go. We got two children. The one at the back's a girl. You've got a boy. So you've actually got children now. So you've got birds, you've got sort of horses, you've got buildings, you've got trees, you've got the water, you've got the boats, you've got technical stuff, you've got swords, you've got spears, you've got all the stuff. So all this detail, what's being seen and what we're sort of demonstrating. So it's almost you step back and those faces come alive. The detail, the real detail, really comes alive as they're wearing these typical sort of togas. And the sense of the triumphal procession. Now we're sort of on scene 64, and then you've got something rather interesting. And so you've got the little girl and the little boy, and you've got a little bit of a family there, and you've got the mum in front. You've got two children behind, and this is really interesting, and that they're actually holding hands. That's sort of that normal, taken for granted that they're holding hands. Look at that detail there. And mother, or is described as the attendant, is basically saying, "Oh, hang on, guys, you can see the little boy, I want to see the emperor. I want to see the emperor. The emperor's in front of us. Let's see the emperor. He's here. He's walking through the street. He's there. What's he doing? He's going to make a sacrifice. This is the sacrifice. This is where we've got the sacrifice. This is the great sacrifice. And we haven't got many images, so let's do the sacrifice. So this is the sacrifice of the bulls. And there's two things I want to show you this, right? Look at the accuracy of the join there. Look at the accuracy of the join. I know this is the plaster cast version, but the accuracy of the join, the two separate carvers had all this lined up to be able to carve this, to be able to meet. Well, I was thinking maybe this was block on block and they were doing that bit and they moved it away and did that bit. That's really unlikely because of the way they're doing this. So one thing about carving is you're not going to carve a column once we've already said that once it's up, it's not going to happen. So what you've got garlands. The other detail I'll show you is this is the plastic cast, but the detail from the plastic cast is amazing. You've got the bulls, and you've got the hair at the front of the bull. You've got the eyes. You've got all the detail there, and it's just those bulls look just so alive, and they've gone through that detail. And the one thing is you've got these are almost Greek looking individuals, sort of would be at that time, sort of moved into the area from Macedonia and so on, from the south. And again, getting that feeling, it's the time of the sacrifice. So we're into the other scenes of 66, 67, that type of thing. And more of these standard bearers, more of these signifers, and there you go, the golden hand on top. This is the be all and end all of great armies. And again, you've got the fortune of movement, and they're all there. We're moving on with the scenes. There's the sacrifice there going on. You've got the altar, and there's the dead bull. There's the bull's head down below. So the sacrifice has been made, and this is all iconic of the journey of sacrifice and what they've got alongside all the a little bit of information. So the emperor is in the act of offering sacrifice on a small square altar. Now, I'm pretty sure from what I'm seeing that I haven't got a description on this, but I'm going to presume that the person who is the emperor is in fact this individual here, because we're in an act of sacrifice, an actual sacrifice to the gods. So what you've got on the altar, I'm just going to read it. It's not very clear, but you've got a pine cone in the middle. I think that's a pine cone there, in the middle there, and so you've got the altar. Apparently, these are pomegranates and various other fruit used for consumption. So the crowd and the whole group is all ready for the sacrifice, and you've got children who have crept in here as well. There's a child there, and I do believe oh yes, you've got some women here as well, so that they're all in on it. Everybody's in on it, and you've got some more children's heads. You've got a few children, so they're all watching what's going on. So this is the big event. This is the big event. Oh yes, sorry, that's a little bit more, with the garlands there. Yeah, that is the guy on the left, because Trajan's not going to be it. So it's guy on the left. I do believe that's a woman on the right as well, with the hair. She's shorter. I think that's a woman. So that's definitely Trajan now on the left there, and that figure there is one of the notaries of the whole arrangement. And there you go, sort of holding the head on top of the bull's horns themselves. So it then goes on to sort of campaigning, and it goes on to more deeper scenes. And as the whole thing echoes out into more of the campaigning scenes, going off into war. And there he is. As the scenes sort of now develop, we're starting to get to the end of the campaign, and we're starting to get to more of the top now. And you've got battle scenes above. Somebody said, "Oh, why are they sleeping at the top?" And I said, "No, that's the typical Dacian weapon. These are all Dacians that they're fighting. Some on the ground, some dead. Some Romans dead, and all the rest of it. But what we do have is that figure there is Trajan himself, as he's going into battle, or as he's going off to basically, these guys, let's sort of help you out. Please come and help us, Trajan. You are the one to help us. And what you've got some other figures at the bottom, right? And you've got a young child there as well. So he's on his horse, and I got to be honest with you, if anyone's sort of equine trained, they would probably know their horses. They'd be able to say, "I know what horse that is." Be able to identify it just like that. But I'm not into my horses. I'm not a horse person. So again, we've got this detail, and there he is again, Trajan. Come on, help us, Trajan. We need you. And there he is. So we're coming more or less to the end of this today, and again, looking in some of these much later scenes, and again, what we've got more bulls needed to be sacrificed. Poor old bulls. But what you've got some trees there. I think they're more like vines, and these are actually Dacian shields. So these are Dacian shields, sort of captured, put up there. We've got to sort of we've got to do another sacrifice. We've got to allow ourselves, and this again is another shrine, and little people, little children there. So the children are there going, "Oh, what's going on? Who's this guy? This is the great Trajan himself." And obviously there is, you've got a few women in this. You've got a lady there, another lady there, another lady there, another lady there. And this is all about building the myth, building the legend, not the myth, the legend that is in fact this great Emperor Trajan. And there it is, just about to make another sacrifice. And I do believe that's a child there. And that is a very attractive woman there as well. So you've got that, and it's just, the carvers were not afraid to say this is a world of Rome. This column itself is a column for everybody. Trajan represents everybody in the sacrifice, in the emboldened sacrifice of the Roman world. We've got to give thanksgiving for the defeat of these damnable nations. So we go back to this earlier scene. We're back again to the earlier scene again, and actually that's it. So I tell you what we'll do, we'll just sort of move back and sort of remind us what we've done. Hang on, let's just go back on these images, remind us what we've done, and we'll just finish there. Hang on a minute, we'll go back a bit, and then we'll just see if there's any questions. So this is only part of the history. This is only part of the legacy that is left with us. And again, if the rest of the temple complex had survived, we'd have more of a story, more of an understanding. And in that temple complex, look at those boats, look at that detail of the boat on it. If we'd have had more of the temple complex survive, there'd be lots of the library. And again, this is over 100 panels, and all the detail, and all the information, and the great story that is Trajan. And this was once there in Rome. And I think what we should do is end with the actual image. Look at these great panels, absolutely amazing. And the god, and there you go, loading the boats back at the beginning, all the way back through. And there you go, the base of the column. And there it is. There it is. And one second, I gotta answer this a minute. Hiya, Kerry Ann. I'm in the middle of lecturing at this minute, so I can give you a call in 10 minutes. Okay. I'll speak to you then. Love you. Bye. Bye. It's my daughter's birthday, the 18th today. So let's get back to last image of the column. Hang on. One, do. Making you guys dizzy. Hang on. All the way back at the beginning. We've done so many images today. We've done so well for us to get through. And there we go. There's the column. There's Marcus Aurelius's. And there is Trajan's column. Beautiful. And if you ever get an opportunity to see it, book a year in advance to try and go inside. So let's call that a day. It's exactly 9:20 as promised. Right, let's start off with Goff. Anything you want to say, lovely?
Oh, it's very good. Lots of great images, and there must have been a really big deal when they built that and put it up. Must have been a hell of a day.
I got to be, yeah. And he was still alive. He was alive for another 4 years. Go on.
Yeah, it must have been well of a booze at that. And I just can't get my head around the fact that it depicts his battles, his war, first Dacian war. Yet no one can see it because it's on a column. So what's all that? Yeah.
The amount of money and detail that went into that. Obviously, I'm talking about the precinct would have cost billions, right? In modern day money, I tell you why I get the scale, where I get the figure of billions from, right? What they're doing in the United States, they're putting back lots of the Confederate statues after the Confederate statues were taken down. So they're putting the Confederate statues up. So the Confederate statue associated with the Arlington War Cemetery, right? The Confederate statue that was put up there, right, with the memorial, is going to cost them £10 million to put back. And that's just to put back the statue and the thing, right? So if it costs £10 million just to put that thing back, how much would it have cost to have actually erected Trajan's column in the first place, based on those modern day figures? The column itself, you're talking about in the hundreds of millions of pounds to create, let alone the rest of the precinct. And the other thing as well is, what's all that about that you couldn't really... So sometimes in this, we're not reading the story properly. Maybe there was a way that they were able to read it. Maybe there was some kind of wooden framework around the outside that you could actually go around a spiral. Maybe there was another building around the outside that you could see that, because it was enclosed. it was enclosed by the precinct. It wasn't as if anyone could see it outside anyway. So maybe there's something we're missing. And also, as I said, with the statue falling down, working out when it fell down, how it fell down, if the statue in the first place, you'd have all the stress marks, all the fracture marks in what's down below, right? You would be able to see if there was some kind of framework around the outside as well, because that would be putting a lot of pressure and a lot of fractures into the stone below. So there's some things missing which could be easily solved, Goff.
Okay, thank you.
And it doesn't need intrusive technology. It could just be modern scanning technology to work that out. So it wouldn't cost the earth, you know. Thank you, Goff.
Okay.
Richard.
No, very interesting. I say the
My
amount of work that must have gone into it. You know,
Yeah.
the amount of skilled labour that it would have taken up. You know, so.
If that was a work of a single craftsman, it would never have been created.
No.
So there would have been dozens and dozens of highly skilled craftsmen to do that. Dozens of them. And again, I'm going to say it. If we try to, we wouldn't be able to do it today because we wouldn't have that number of craftsmen to do it. And secondly, whenever they've talked about, oh, let's try and do a replica of one of the great pyramids at Giza, we don't even know how they were constructed anyway. So they can't even build a pyramid. The one thing I would say, the comment I made last night, which is not something that I don't regret, to have achieved creating this was a far greater achievement than the Great Pyramid at Cheops at Giza, right? However, with the Great Pyramid Khufu, was it Cheops? I get them mixed up. The Great Pyramid at Giza took 25 years to build, right? This column and the entire precinct, with probably the same tonnage of stone to create the whole thing, took 6.5, 7 years. And this was obviously done by, this was another point. This was not built by slaves. This was built by people who wanted to build this. And I always use the example, if slaves built this, or they built the Great Pyramids, these buildings would never have stayed up. Because we saw that with the Stott organization in the Second World War, where people started urinating on the circuit boards of V2-1 and V2 warheads, and they would explode on the ground, right? If slaves are being used. These were people who built that, who wanted it to last, who were not slaves. This idea of Rome being led completely by a slave society is absolute crud. Define slavery. In the Roman world, a Greek artisan who taught your children, who was treated well, had their own bed, and was able to send letters home to their children, they were classed as slaves. So they're not really slaves, are they? Anyway, thank you for that, Richard. Pat.
Yes. Well, I was just amazed at the detail of it all. I just can't quite imagine it, you know. And how much restoration? Did they do much restoration?
Actually, no. The only bit of restoration is actually at the top. So, you know, they've had to fill in a few holes in the column and stuff along the way. But the only restoration is at the top, simply because things have changed at the top and it's been hit by lightning and stuff. But other than that, and they've had to put lightning sort of conductors all the way through as well. But you can see them on the images. But the point is there's only a little bit of restoration at the top. The rest of it, there's not much restoration at all. It's as it was. It's in the bare. It's in the nudity. It's there.
Great.
A couple of holes have been filled in, but that's life, you know.
Yeah.
So thank you for that, Pat. Anne, anything?
No, couldn't find anything. Oh, anything. I'm going to go to the Hebrides the next 5 nights. So I don't come back until, see, I might be back by Wednesday. Yeah. No, Thursday come back. So I won't be here
I want to
next
know
week.
all about it. I want to know all about it when I see you next, okay?
Okay.
And send me a photograph of one of the sites you go to. Not too many, to send me one. That'd be good, Pat. Thank you very much for your contribution tonight, and have a great time in the Hebrides. Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Okay. Right. Will do.
So thank you for that, Pat. And finally, Anne, anything you want to say, Anne? Anne?
She's out to lunch.
My God, Anne! My God, it's the only time Anne's ever been quiet when she's not there. I know what's going to happen now. Everybody's going to go and she'll be back. Right? It's a bit late, Anne. You know what I mean? So right, Henry. Anything you want to say, lovely? And we'll do something lighter next week. We'll chuck the Heraclanium images in next week, actually. So.
Just impressed by the detail, the actual craftsmanship. You're not talking of something that was done on a Saturday afternoon. It's just so impressive, and the fact it's lasted so long.
Yeah, and even a chunk of even one of the drums, if one of the 19 drums had only survived, that would be unbelievable. But it's beyond unbelievable. It's all survived. And Anne's question, how much? Not Anne, Pat's question, how much has it been restored? Not the detail itself. No, we've got it's in its raw. A couple of holes here and there filled, but that's going to happen, And it's not been reconstructed either. It's not all been on the ground and put back up like lots of these columns. It's been, it's as it is, it's as it always has been. Lots of columns around Rome have been re-erected and stuff, and even been re-erected in antiquity when there was sort of earth tremors and stuff. But this is still remained. It's still there. And the Marcus Aurelius one that people don't talk about. We might do a little bit of Antonius Pius in the distant future, but we'll see.
No, very good. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, it's now 28 minutes past 9, and Richard is 28 minutes past his bedtime. Oh, Anne, we're all about to go. Anything you want to say?
Oh, no, I'm just telling my friend all about the Trajan column. She hadn't heard about it either.
And you've just been telling her, and you just missed the lecture. Anne, anything you want to say before we go?
No, but it's obviously fascinating. And you said they made things like copper mold. They made copper molds. What did they do with the copper molds?
Oh, that's on display at the Kensington Museum, the Victoria and Albert Museum. There's two columns. Right. Yeah, you can see it. It's there on display today.
Yeah. Oh, right. Because I know when we were in Florence, the doors opposite the cathedral, must have been some sort of, reading place or prayer place, and that had all copper panels, molded. Yeah. Obviously, different era, but fascinating. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
These massive doors. No, it's my pleasure. These massive doors.
All about them.
Okay, then. Well, what we're going to do, that's a nice end. If nobody else has got anything else to say, thank you very much for listening to me tonight. It's been brilliant. And I know we've gone a little bit over, but it was going to be one of those special ones. More about Trajan's column in the future. We'll be doing something different next week. Thank you very much. And thanks for getting all the monies over. So I'm going to say good night. Thank you very much, Goff.
Good night.
And Henry and everybody else online. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Sorry about that. Guys. My friend I don't hear from her very often.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Night, Henry. Night, Anne. Anyway, it's a pleasure, Anne. Thank you. Okay, that's fine. I think that's it now. I don't know if anyone's else left on, but that's just me. Night, Richard. It's all gone dark on the screen. I don't know where he's gone. So I'm just going to double check to see if there's anybody online now, and let's have a little look to see if there's any messages and stuff online. Been a bit quiet recently. I might have a little bit of a lie down before I head back to South Wales. I've got some Lucozade in the car. That'll keep me up. Right, we're going to make sure all the animals are to bed. That's why we're doing the break. So let's just see where I am. Oh, I got that wonderful Italian composer to listen to on the way back now. Oh, sorry, guys. Oh, there. Can see if there's any messages that I reply to. The Dodgy Git was there tonight. Thank you very much, Dodgy Git, for listening. Anyone else wants to make a donation so I can get the book 25 quid on the Trajan's column by the National Geographic. I haven't got that money available at this minute. Money's tight. So anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Join the channel. £1.99 a month. And more about the Roman world next week, and the wonderful Roman world next week is really good. That's the one I'll be listening to. Ludovico Unardi. Love his stuff. It's good. The one track that I like is Experience, but there's so much other stuff on there. So we're going to see if I got, yeah, looking forward. I've got to do some more book writing. So tonight I'm actually staying in Brecon, so I've only got an hour away to go. So I've got some food waiting for me, so that'll be good. So new chat, and thanks everybody for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We're good to get up to 3,370 subscribers. That'd be good, and maybe 3,400 in the next few weeks. That'd be good. Everything helps. Nice bit of support. And let's a little look. So there's nothing in that window 1, nothing in that window 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Nothing in that window 8, 9, 10. Nothing in the window 11, 12. Nothing in that window 13, 14. And nothing in that window back to 7. Nothing. And diolch yn fawr i chi. Gwelwch chi eto am o'r hyd. Na night. Diolch. Na night.